Welcome to Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions, the podcast where we dive deep into our faith on this incredible journey of balancing a life dedicated to healing, nurturing, and giving back. I'm Johanna, your host, and each time we meet, we'll explore the stories of remarkable individuals who are PAs, doctors, and professionals, and mission-driven changemakers, from the halls of our hospitals to the hearts of our homes, and into the communities we serve. Join us as we uncover the challenges, triumphs, and everything in between through the lens of our shared faith in Christ. Whether you're a healthcare professional, a parent, or someone passionate about making a difference for God's glory, this podcast is for you. So grab a cup of coffee or tea, settle in, and get ready to be inspired by real-life stories of resilience, compassion, and dedication, all rooted in faith. Hi friends, I'm so excited. Today we have a special guest, Colleen Sloan. She is a PA and a registered dietitian. She's also the creator of the Exam Room Nutrition podcast. It's amazing. You have to listen to her. You can check her out on Instagram. Lots of tidbits of information, so much information. It's a great way for clinicians to be empowered and for us to better take care of our patients. So Colleen, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm really grateful to have you on here to talk to us about nutrition as providers, consumers, everything.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm so excited to be on your show. I just love what you're doing.
Thank you so much. So tell us, how did you even start this journey to becoming a PA? You were a registered dietitian, and now you've started a business. What was the pivotal moment in all of these steps that you've taken?
Well, my theory is never stop learning, and you're never too old to learn something new. And so I was a dietitian for about 5 years, and I just felt as though I had more to give to my patients. And I had kind of topped out on all things. I worked in the ICU, I did hospital nutrition, I had my own private practice doing weight management and diabetes education. Then I transitioned over to outpatient pediatrics and some specialty clinics. And I had just felt like, man, gosh, I want to be more on the medical team. I wanted to do more for my patients. So I applied to PA school and got in to the first and only school that I applied to. So if you're a PA, wanting to apply to PA school, I don't suggest that, but got into PA school. And immediately after PA school, I've been working in primary pediatrics. So outpatient pediatrics ever since, and there's no going back. I absolutely love what I do. I love working with kids, and I just have so much joy, and it's just so much fun going into clinic every day. So I love it. However, I noticed really quickly that patients ask their primary care provider, whether you're in adult medicine or peds, a lot of questions about nutrition. Mm-hmm. We all eat, right? So we all need to know how to fuel our bodies healthfully, and whether it's feeding an infant and when you're supposed to transition to, baby foods and how do you do that, working with picky eaters, or on the flip side in adult medicine and people are wanting to manage their diabetes better or lose weight. Mm-hmm. They're coming to their clinician looking for guidance and information. And unfortunately, at least in PA school, there's not much nutrition training that is happening. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of my colleagues would ask me like, how do I help this parent who has a picky eater, or this child has autism and they've got a lot of sensory issues. Mm-hmm. What do I do? And so I just felt like, wow, I know this stuff because of my experience as a dietitian. I have a lot to offer my colleagues. And so I thought, you know what? The best way to get information out there is through a podcast. Mm-hmm. So I spent about 2 months kind of binge YouTube University learning all things podcast because I had no background in it. And I have no family who specializes in it or anything like that. It was just kind of me running the show and just figured, you know what, let's go. We'll learn as we go and get better with time. And so I launched the podcast July of 2023. And I put out an episode each week on a variety of different nutrition topics.
Yeah, I remember back then, and a couple of your first posts on Instagram too, with the new podcast. And I've just been amazed at how it's like just taken off, and because it's something that is so vital, so needed, and people know that. And that's why, the information you're putting out there is something people need, something people want and want to learn. So it's like just something so great that you've done for clinicians. And like how, I know you were just explaining how you realized focusing on nutrition was key. And so since starting that, it's been about a year or so. How has your perception of the provider's understanding of nutrition changed, or has it? And how have you been able to like better inform us as providers, or even just, people who are, patients and consumers?
Well, the response has been overwhelmingly positive because, as providers, we want to help our patients, right? Mm-hmm. That's why we got into medicine. That's the whole point of our career, and our mission is to help our patients live healthier lives. And nutrition is a really big part of that. And a lot of clinicians leave, graduate with such a limited understanding of nutrition at no fault to themselves. Mm-hmm. And unless you do seek out further education for yourself and continuing education credits and things like that, it's very, very limited. But yet the majority of clinicians that, I come in contact with really want to know about nutrition. They want mm-hmm. to provide their patient with helpful advice more than just saying, eat more fruits, eat more vegetables, right. You need to exercise more. Mm-hmm. We all know that. The patients don't need us to tell them that. What mm-hmm. the patients need and what my colleagues are looking for is that actionable, mm-hmm. practical piece of advice that will literally change your patient's life. And so that's been the response that I've gotten from a lot of the colleagues is they're just so thankful because the way in which I present the information is very quick, mm-hmm. bite-sized little nuggets rather mm-hmm. than, a very long presentation. Mm-hmm. I try to give you what you need to know in order to give you, maybe something to say mm-hmm. to that patient sitting right in front of you. And then maybe you can have that discussion about referring them to a registered dietitian to help a little bit more. Because reality is we don't have an hour to sit and talk about nutrition, but you do have 2 to 5 minutes. And I teach in my podcast how to have really effective, efficient conversations about nutrition in that really short time frame that we have as primary care providers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, even CMEs, I don't know whether I've seen many CMEs out there on nutrition. And so it's really hard to find those. And so, and do you think like it's something that is just ingrained in our way of life, though, that we have to kind of unlearn habits, unlearn, the way we live in a way that how is it like, teaching clinicians to think that way? Or are you like, how do you help clinicians exactly like teach patients mm-hmm. how to have a better nutrition, like focus on lifestyle or habits, or are there other ways?
Well, I always say there's not a black and white answer for nutrition. I mean, every patient that you might have a different answer or a different spin on your recommendation or your suggestion. But the primary way that I think that we can help our patients the most is, first of all, is listening, because we are so quick to just jump and give advice and give suggestions mm-hmm. and give a recommendation. But if we can just pause and listen to what the patient is telling us, they're explaining their problem within their problem, right? Mm-hmm. They're coming to you and they're really telling you what's going on. So I first and foremost always teach clinicians that we need to listen a lot more than we do. And there's an acronym that I love, and it's called WAIT, WAIT, and it stands for Why Am I Talking? And it's just a great reminder to allow your patient the time to explain their difficulties, explain where they're struggling. Instead of, if a patient says, oh, I want to lose weight, instead of just saying, okay, well, here's, why don't you try intermittent fasting and then come back to me in 6 weeks? That's not really helpful. And you're actually not building connection with your patient at all. Mm-hmm. The next best thing to do if a patient asks, I want to lose weight, I teach clinicians, ask them a question. Well, why do you want to lose weight? What are you looking to get out of losing weight? What do you want to do in the future that you can't do now that you think you will happen because you're going to be losing weight, right? Get to their core reason for wanting to make a change, because I find that motivation needs to happen first before we can actually have action. And patients really don't need more information. With the digital age that we live in, you can Google anything and learn anything. They don't need more information always. What they need is help with implementation and application. Exactly. And that's a lot of how I teach clinicians that's where we should start. You need to get to know your patient first to really find out what makes them tick and where they're struggling, because then you can provide really personalized tips and advice and strategies for that specific patient, rather than just giving them a handout on a low-fat diet.
Yeah. Do you find it like that some clinicians are finding it hard to do that in a 15-minute visit? And then that we're so used to be like, here's this solution for this diagnosis, and that we're struggling to rethink the way that we practice medicine, to take the time to understand the why behind people's diagnoses, because we're on a time restriction, or it feels like that sometimes, doesn't it?
I 100% agree with you. So I am, I'm in the trenches. I don't speak from, outside in a cushy office or anything like that. I'm in an extremely high volume, very busy pediatric clinic. So I speak from experience, and any advice and tips that I use are strategies that I have perfected over the years. And so I do think it is really challenging to give, nutrition advice, education, counseling in 15 minutes if you're lucky, right? I mean, a lot of times I only have 5 to 10 minutes with patients, and unfortunately, that's the day and age that we live in medicine, and it stinks. It's unfair for us, I think. However, I do find that there are ways and strategies that you can incorporate nutrition in really unique ways. And there are some times when it's not appropriate. Not every patient wants to or needs to talk about their weight or their diet, and that is 100% okay. But I think we are overdue for a complete mindset shift and a reframe with how we approach dieting and nutrition, because the old way and the ways we're doing it isn't working. I mean, with the obesity rates and the diabetes rates are just skyrocketing. So obviously our techniques aren't working. They're not hitting home for patients. And so I think it is time to try something different.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously, definitely 100%. The way things are not working, because people are definitely struggling to find that balance, find that way of life. And it's a mindset change, but I think it's more of a mindset change in us as clinicians as well, because we're part of the way that a health change can occur, and that health behavior can occur. Because we're so used to just, here's this medication for this problem, whereas something else could easily be something far more beneficial. But how do you find it, like, because I deal with more of an adult population and more closer to geriatric population, and so it's a totally different playing field than pediatrics, where you're seeing people grow and adapt and change, and maybe be more willing to change their lifestyle or incorporate new things because they have that, ability to change a little bit better than sometimes in the patient populations I see. How could I be a better, advocate for health change in an adult population? Or, how would you tell me about my adult population, and how do I, incorporate better practice?
Absolutely. Yep. So different than pediatrics, but I still think you can teach an old dog new tricks. I think that they are still capable of change, even though, yes, as we get a little more mature, we are very set in our ways.
Yeah.
However, that's where it brings it back to that mindset shift in us, but also in our patients. We need to start teaching them and educating them on the fact that it is not all about weight loss. Let's look at other non-scale victories that we can measure. You had said that, we're so used to, here's your problem, here's your medication. You have a rash, here's the cream. You have pink eye, here's your eye drops, right? We're very used to transactional, paternalistic type of medicine. But nutrition is not like that. And, registered dietitians are here. They're available for referrals, and they have the skills and ability to work with your patients in a far deeper, comprehensive way than we can. However, that being said, I think the first thing that you can do with patients is, especially in the geriatric ones, you still want them to have joy in life. The last thing that most of us want to do in our last 20, 30 years is be on a restrictive diet.
Exactly.
And so I think you do have to have those conversations with the patients and say, what is your goal for however long we have left for the next 25 years? I have a lot of patients who are grandparents, and they want to be able to crawl around and play with their grandkids. They want to be able to keep up with them on the playground. And I said, okay, that's the goal we're working towards. And we're not working towards 20-pound weight loss.
Yeah.
Let's work towards your youthfulness and your energy levels and being able to pick up your toddlers, So I think if you can reframe first, what are we looking at achieving? And then let's work towards that is much better than just, I want to lose 20 pounds. They're going to want to be losing 20 pounds for the rest of their life. If that's the goal.
Right.
And sometimes weight loss isn't the goal. They don't need to be losing weight, especially in some of the geriatric populations. They need to be putting on some muscle because they're losing a lot of lean body mass. And so how can we talk about getting in some protein? Are we just having coffee for breakfast in the morning? Are there other things that you can be having instead of just your tea and toast in the morning that they're so used to having?
Yeah.
So little simple ways of, finding out exactly what their goal is beyond just the weight. And then what are you normally eating every day? And then finding one or two things that you can work on. You'd be shocked with how much of an impact small shifts and small little swaps impact them. And that can be for weight loss or weight gain. For breakfast, if they want to lose weight and they're drinking coffee with whole milk or creamer, hey, can we swap that whole milk for maybe almond milk or for a lower calorie or a sugar-free sweetener instead? Those little things add up over time, but you do have to ask your patient and you have to know, where are they starting at and what types of advice can I do to meet them where they are so it's not so overwhelming.
Yeah. That's a great way to think about it. And I think that's more doable too for us as, clinicians, because then we can focus on just one thing at a time. And then hopefully see that progress, then we can, go on to the next step. Otherwise, if we also as clinicians think like, oh my goodness, we have to correct everything all at once, get their weight down, get their hypertension, diabetes under control and everything. But if we also work with them as a team to be like, let's work on this step first and then this step, then we may be able to have a better attitude towards their health in general too, because otherwise we're overwhelmed because we just don't see the progress. We just see more and more blood pressure medications. Oh, they're adding insulin now,
Yeah.
And so we're just not seeing the progress. So we feel defeated too, right? And I think that's kind of something that we also feel in medicine is that defeat when we also don't get to see that progress and, success with our patients.
I agree with you completely. And it's really frustrating. And that's actually one of the main reasons I did not want to go into adult medicine when I became a PA, because I was really frustrated as a dietitian. And I did weight management and diabetes and education. And it's frustrating. It really, really is. And I think it is a one-way track to burnout as well. But what I have suggested to a lot of my clinicians is take that burden of change off of your shoulders, because you're just there to lead, guide, and encourage your patients. It's not your responsibility to change them. It is the patient's. And if you can help the patient figure out one or two very, very small things, small habits are easier and they will snowball into larger habits, right? Small actions lead into large habits. And so taking that burden off and literally asking your patient, what would you like to work on? What would be a realistic change or action that you can do this week every single day that can get you towards your goal of playing on the ground with your toddlers? They'll tell you the answer. And then all you have to do is affirm that, encourage that, and say, that sounds great. Let's follow up in 2 weeks to see how that went. And we can tack on something else once you master that. But it's when we throw the kitchen sink at them that it's overwhelming for us. And it's even more overwhelming for them because now we're asking them to completely change their entire behavior, preferences, culture around food. And that's really, really difficult when you actually look at the patient's, 24-hour day at home. Yeah,
exactly. And I love how you've kind of showcased your dad as an example of this completely 100% relatable patient example. And I just love it. It's so like warm and inviting, and it just makes everyone feel like, hey, that is what we can do. It's not like just, the other transformations on like an HGTV thing, we go from like shabby to chic, in like 2 seconds.
Yes, because that's not realistic. And my dad, for those of you who don't know, I'm on Instagram at Exam Room Nutrition, and I share a few reels every week about my dad. And he's a cardiac patient. 2-3 years ago, he had a massive episode. We thought it was a heart attack, but it ended up being rapid onset AFib. He's your typical, 65-year-old male who's not taking care of himself. He's obese. He's got diabetes now. He's got hypertension. So like your typical metabolic syndrome patient. Love him with all my heart, but he's my most frustrating patient. Because he loves to tell all his doctors that, I don't, my daughter's a dietitian. I don't need any help with that. And I'm like, Dad, but I'm not working with you. And so finally, he had another event this summer. I was like, listen, we've got to make some changes. I've got a daughter who's 14, and I told him, I know you want to be present at her wedding, and I want you to be there as well. So we've got to make some changes. So I showcased that to show people like the reality, we've been walking 9 weeks and he just made it to the 1 mile marker.
I saw that.
And it's like, okay, that's so little to some people, but for him, he sits on his recliner all day, every day. So a mile was a really big deal.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to showcase is like, hey, what does the patient want to do? Encourage them in that area. And don't push the other things, because I promise you, they're not, especially the older population, they're not going to do something if they don't want to do it, And so I find that encouraging them, even in the really, really small things, like the last reel I put, I don't know if you saw it, but he made it to the mile and he did the cutest celebratory dance. And it just warms your heart, because that's how patients feel when they accomplish something. And as a provider, if you can be there to celebrate that with them, it just spurs them on for future changes. And so, thanks for mentioning that about my dad. He's so cute.
I just love that. It's so relatable, and it just makes it realistic for us too, to think about real life patients, not just, the instant transformations that everyone wants.
Oh, and social media shows that too, right? You're like, oh, you did this diet and you lost 20 pounds, and it's frustrating for us as clinicians. It's frustrating for patients as well if they don't get those results either. And so, and we use those little walks as little chats about foods that he can eat. And he asks great questions about cheese and, bagels and things like that. So it's just little simple stuff like that, that just, remember that your patients are people, treat them as that. And I promise you, it's going to make such a difference in how you feel working. You won't have that burnout. You'll have that joy again in patients, but also how you're treating them and how they are receiving the information you're giving them.
Yeah, totally true. Just small, really easy steps that can be incorporated into a daily routine, and something that comes from them, something that is almost like their own idea, that you're just encouraging them to be like, yes, I can do it. Everything that comes from within us that we desire then it's something that we can feel like we can obtain and do and want to do. But if it's something forced on us, then we tend to be like grudgingly do things or not do it at all. And so, I see definitely how, encouraging them to come up with their doable steps on their own as something that can be achievable and hopefully life-changing. And so speaking of all of that and thinking of balance, because nutrition is all about balance too, but how do you balance motherhood, your job, work, career, and this new side gig, which is kind of bustling and booming? How do you balance all of that too?
It's such a great question. And honestly, it's just God's grace. I mean, I love that you call it a side gig because it feels like way more full-time than my full-time job as a PA. I mean, as you know, podcasting is really, really tough. It's way harder than I thought it was going to be. And I do everything on my own. I don't hire out for editing or marketing or anything like that. And so I am an intentional person and I'm intentional with my parenting. I am intentional in my personal life. I'm an intentional PA. So with that being said, I'm very strategic with how I use my time and relationships come first. And so I am a mom first and foremost. And even when I went to PA school, my daughter was going into kindergarten at that time. And I told myself, and this was a pact I made with myself, is I will still be the exact same mom that I was to her before PA school, during PA school. Because as you know, it's such a huge commitment and it's your life.
Yeah.
So I chose to be a mom in the hours that I was a mom and I did not multitask at all. And so that's really how I am still to this day is, when it's time for work, it's time for work. But when it's time to be a mom, it's time to be a mom. And I find that if you can compartmentalize your day like that, it makes you be present and more efficient in the things that you're, trying to accomplish, because it's when we try to multitask and we think we're being really efficient, but you're not. You can't really give something 100% if you're also giving something else your time and attention.
That's true.
Being a mom to me is the most important job that you can have. And it's such an impactful gift that we're given. And I don't want that to be replaced by anything else. And so like I said, I'm really intentional with that. There's some strategic things that also, it helps that she's older. So she's 14 now. So she doesn't need me I don't have little toddlers running around.
Right.
Which is nice. So it's a good season that I'm in and she's very, self, diligent and she can, work on her own. So that's nice. So it does give me time, but I schedule my day. So I know the night before exactly what projects, what emails, what I need to do for the next day. And if I don't get it done, because I never get my entire to-do list done, then that goes up to the top of the list for the next day. And, I usually know I've got, know which days I can be really, really efficient and put in a lot of work with the podcast and social media and the days that I can't. And I also am just really, kind to myself. Yeah. I am very type A, as most of us are, and very much a perfectionist that I've had to learn to just give myself a lot of grace and forgiveness and just hey, you know what? I'm doing the absolute best I can. And I'm really proud of myself for doing that. Yeah. And every day, if I can say that I've done the best that I can, then I'm happy with that. Even if I don't get everything on my to-do list done, or if, the images don't look perfect and the fonts are off or whatever, you can be so hard on yourself for so many things that I just have to speak positivity and affirmations to myself. And I find that it's just such a more enjoyable experience.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true. Because perfectionism is the perfect way to ruin your life.
It seriously is.
Because no one's perfect. Nothing's going to be perfect, no matter how much we try. And we just got to enjoy the mess and just not that it's messy, but just enjoy no matter what's going on in our life, I guess I should say.
And you know what, though? I think I think acknowledging that and like being okay with like, hey, it is messy. Like I am okay with the fact that a lot of my landing pages don't match and my stuff isn't aesthetic because I'm learning as I go. And I think that bringing the realness and humanness into whatever it is that you do, people are going to be attracted to that. Yeah. I don't pretend to be perfect. And if you want perfect, then you can absolutely go find like the really big corporations who've got a team of 50 people doing stuff. Right. That's fine. I'm here to just give you good information and to be a human and, just live this journey together and support and encourage one another as we are going through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was having a conversation with somebody earlier and just, in life itself, like you have to be able to laugh at yourself and things that happen. You have to be able to not take things too seriously. And, even with nutrition, even with like goals for health, like you can't be so strict and hard on yourself too. Because if you are, then you're going to be so defeated when you fail that you're not going to be able to pick yourself back up and be like, okay, I missed out this week or, in this point, but I can resume, I can restart, I can change, and even in life, that's so important,
it really is.
Because people who are just too serious about things, too strict about how things must be, sometimes then it's so hard to accept when things don't go exactly as planned and then you fall off the wagon. Yeah. And I think that's just so appropriate with our talk about nutrition and lifestyle changes.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, you've got to, and like I say, I'm so big on having joy in life. And yes, you can have a brownie and enjoy that cheesecake with your family or whatever it is, having that freedom to enjoy all foods and enjoy the cultural foods and the celebratory foods. It's just a healthy way to live your life. And, nutrition doesn't have to be so strict, so boring, so mundane all the time because it is a one-way ticket to falling off the wagon. And 2 years later, you're like, oh my gosh, I still have to lose this 30 pounds or whatever.
Yeah. And so what would be like, maybe if you could narrow it down to 3 pieces of advice that you could share with others? Could be about business, could be about, motherhood or nutrition or whatever.
Okay. So the first one I think I touched on a little bit, and that is be intentional. And I think if you can define what that means for you and what is your priority and what you want to be known as. I wanted to be known to my daughter as a mom who loves her and supports her and is always there. I'm never too busy for her. Work will always take the back burner for her and something that she needs. And so that was my priority. So I think if you can just be intentional with your life and with your goals and priorities, it's going to give you so much clarity.
Yeah.
Now for business, I would say take advantage of the time that you do have to learn. And what I mean by that is we have a lot more time in our day than we think. A lot of people like to say that they're too busy. And it's actually a pet peeve of mine because I feel as though I'm a really, really busy person. I work full time as a pediatric PA, do my podcast, run my social media page. And I also homeschool my daughter. So we haven't mentioned that, but she's homeschooled.
Wow.
So yes, I'm busy and I completely understand when people say that. However, be intentional. Again, there's that word with how you use your time. And what I mean is if you're trying to grow a business or you want to do a side gig, you do need to learn some stuff, right? Like you may need to buy a course or there's tons of stuff on YouTube that's free and podcasts. I literally use every free moment that I have to learn something. And so when I'm showering, I don't listen to music. I have a podcast. When I am driving, I don't listen to music. I have a podcast. When I'm cooking dinner, I don't listen to music. I listen to a podcast. And so, those 10 to 30 minute windows in your day are really great opportunities to learn something, especially if you're wanting to start something new or grow a business or just, maybe even learn about nutrition for yourself, throw on a podcast. You'd be shocked at how much you can actually get done. That's how I learned most things with podcasting and email marketing and things like that, is just using my time very wisely.
Yeah.
And then my third piece of advice, lastly, would be to encourage someone every day. I am really, really big on reaching out to either people you know or even someone you don't and giving them a word of encouragement or gratitude for something that you've received from them. So, for example, there's another PA, I think you've met her, Rachel Acosta. She started a new podcast on burnout and topics like that for PAs. And she has been really grateful for me because I was intentional in supporting her and just like sending her virtual high fives and commenting on her posts and leaving a review for her podcast. And she told me that it really uplifted her and it really just motivated her to know that there's somebody supporting her. So I think that if you can do that for someone every day, it's like having, a gratitude journal and things like that.
Yeah.
But when you give positivity out into the world and when you are showing someone, hey, I see the work that you're doing and it's awesome and I love it. High five, keep going. I promise you, not only will it probably change that person's day, but it will make you feel so encouraged yourself too, because of the impact that you're making on other people's lives.
Yeah, that's beautiful and beautifully said, because, when we are kind to other people, then we make the space happier,
Yeah.
The whole space becomes brighter, happier. The tension goes. Just a simple smile sometimes makes such a difference. And I love that. That's great pieces of advice for life in general. And so what do you love about starting your nutrition business?
I have loved meeting people who I would have never met before. I'm not really a big social media fan. Like in my personal life, I don't have like a personal page and I don't do the influencer thing. With a podcast, you kind of have to, because it's like, how are you going to get people to know you have a show without getting it out into the world?
Right.
And so I've actually been quite pleasantly surprised at the relationships that I've fostered and made through social media. I mean, even you and I, like, you wouldn't connect with these people ordinarily in your day-to-day life because you don't see them face to face. And so it's been so awesome just having people message me on Instagram or send me a comment through LinkedIn, or even just replying to my emails of like, hey, I loved this episode, or love what you're putting out. It's amazing. And even just making other connections with other amazing PAs doing incredible things in the world. It's just been a really cool way to connect.
Yeah. Yeah. It is so amazing. Despite the negativity, it's just like what you said about, putting the encouragement out there. You seek the good and you'll find the good.
Absolutely.
And so, but I love that. And what advice would you give about, or that would be maybe the most important in nutrition and health?
Let's see.
I feel like we may have touched on some aspects of this earlier.
I can come up with something else. I would probably, tell someone, if it's the most important thing when it comes to nutrition, I'm going to give you a piece of advice that you can give to every single patient, regardless of their age and medical condition. And I rarely ever give blanket nutrition recommendations because, like I had said, nutrition is so nuanced and you really do need to give personalized nutrition advice. But the number one thing that all Americans are lacking in, and that's 95% of us, are not getting enough fiber. So fiber is my favorite topic to bring up in all cases, because the studies are showing we're only getting about 15 grams of fiber a day. And we need between 25 and 35, depending if you're a male or female. And so that comes back to the, education of, yes, more fruits and vegetables, but help your patient understand How do I do that? Everybody knows, even listeners, even myself. I think I only had one fruit today, and at my time it's 4 p.m. Right. So like, I'm not perfect. I don't get enough fiber either. So it's a good reminder that if maybe you don't even talk about anything nutrition with your patients, but talk about fiber. It helps patients with high cholesterol. It helps constipated patients. It's going to help people with high blood pressure because fiber foods typically are fruits and veggies, and those usually have high potassium. So it's going to offset the sodium in their diet, right? So like, it is one of the best things that you can talk about. But even just giving them some quick tips on how to include more fruits and veggies, like sprinkling their yogurt with a few chopped pieces of berries or banana, or even pureeing some berry and using it in your waffle or pancake batter or syrup, including some apples or chopped up carrots in your tuna salad or chicken salad or something like that. Like little tips here and there can add up over time. So fiber is my favorite topic. So I'm really glad that you asked me this question because that would be my biggest piece of advice to help your patients get more fiber in their diet.
That's a great piece of advice and something that we probably don't think about, obviously, since it's not the most common thing that people are having in their diet. And so that's awesome. And so any last words of encouragement for us that you can leave the listeners with?
Well, when talking about nutrition, don't feel like you have to accomplish it all and it's all on you. Remember, there are registered dietitians available and totally willing to help you. If you don't know any or you can't find any, please reach out to me. I have thousands that I know thanks to social media. So I'm very able to help in that case. And just make that referral, because even if you're not sure if they're going to cover it or anything like that, still make the referral because a dietitian can work on it, with the patient or with the insurance company, depending on coverage and things like that. And, lastly is just remember that the work that you do matters and that the patients so appreciate the gift that you're giving them, and just to continue to shine your light because the patients need it.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Colleen, because this has been so good, because I feel like just for me and my patients that I see, that maybe, I can start to encourage them to foster a better lifestyle or nutrition just with the one simple thing that they can incorporate. And just think of things as just small things that we can break down, that we can start on that journey. And thank you so much for your, time that you take to do all of this. And I'm so glad God put that desire and wisdom inside of you to share with others, because this is definitely something that's needed for clinicians and patients. And I really appreciate that. And just like you said, I hope that everyone finds a way to spark hope in other people's lives by being encouraging, kind, and shining that light. Thank you so much for listening to us today. I hope that you learned a lot, and I hope that you continue to listen next week. And thank you so much. Have a blessed day, guys. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions. We hope you found inspiration, insight, and a sense of connection in the stories we shared today. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe and follow us, leave a review. Your feedback helps us improve and reach more listeners like you. Follow us on Instagram and all the socials. We'd love for you to join a community of like-minded individuals passionate about making a difference through medicine, motherhood, and mission work. Remember, whether you're balancing the demands of a medical career, navigating the joys and challenges of parenthood, or dedicating yourself to a cause greater than yourself, you're not alone. We're here to support you, celebrate, and inspire one another on this incredible journey. Until next time, keep healing, keep nurturing, and keep sparking hope. This is Johanna signing off from Medicine, Motherhood, and Missions.